Imagine a hero who, for years, was unshakable, always reliable in moments of pressure. Now, this hero is facing the biggest challenge of his career, and the doubt is in the air. Has it come time to say goodbye? Justin Tucker, the legend of the Ravens, is going through a tough time after being the most accurate kicker in NFL history. He is now in a phase of errors, and the Ravens are starting to look to the future in a way many didn't expect. What's happening? Is he still the right man for the job? Or is it time for a transition? Stay with me until the end because we're going to reveal everything at stake for Tucker and the future of the Ravens. Don't blink. You won't want to miss this story. Go Ravens! For years, Justin Tucker was more than just a kicker. He was synonymous with security, a name that, when mentioned, brought calm to Ravens fans. In tight games, he was the difference between winning and losing. It was almost automatic. When the ball left his foot, the celebration could begin. But last season shattered that illusion harshly and unexpectedly. For the first time since entering the NFL, Tucker stopped being that reliable anchor. The numbers expose a worrying reality. He ended the year with only 73.3% accuracy on field goals, his worst performance of his career, for a player who was once considered the most accurate in league history. Such a drop doesn't go unnoticed. He missed 10 kicks in total, including 2 extra points, something extremely rare for him, and worse. On the longer kicks, which were always a specialty, he only hit 6 out of 11 attempts. This completely changes the way the team can use its kicker. And it's not just about cold numbers. The perception has changed. Before, coaches could call plays knowing a 55-yard kick was nearly guaranteed. Now, such decisions require more caution. Tucker, who was once a tactical weapon, has become an unknown. And in football, where every detail counts, that's a massive issue. The impact goes beyond stats. It affects strategy and, most importantly, collective confidence. The fans feel it. Just recall recent games when Tucker had the chance to decide and missed. Moments that would have been celebrated turned into frustration. The feeling of surprise has given way to a silent unease. When a player like Tucker begins to be questioned, it's a sign that something much deeper is changing within the organization. It's important to understand that not everything can be attributed to bad luck or chance. Tucker hasn't suffered major injuries, nor has he played under particularly adverse conditions. The decline seems technical and perhaps mental. Age also begins to take its toll. At 35, the natural performance curve may be arriving, and the Ravens know that. Holding on to the hope that he'll return to his peak may be too risky, especially in a league that doesn't tolerate instability. Even with all the respect for his history, the NFL is ruthlessly objective. What you did in the past means little when the present starts to falter. And while Tucker has earned credit with both the fans and the locker room, patience has limits. Baltimore is in a position to compete for titles, and a mistake at a critical moment could cost an entire season. The numbers have already raised the alarm. Now it's time to act coldly. And this scenario of instability on the field only gains more weight when we add what's happening off the field. As if the performance on the field wasn't enough cause for concern, Justin Tucker is also carrying a shadow that looms behind the scenes. He's under investigation by the NFL for off-field matters. The full details of these allegations have not been revealed, but the mere fact that there is an official inquiry already changes the perception of the franchise and its fans. In a league that deals with strict conduct standards, this kind of situation directly impacts the stability of any player, even those with almost untouchable reputations. It's impossible to ignore the moment. Tucker isn't just going through a bad technical phase. He's also facing a moment of public questioning. And this affects everything. His image, his work environment, and even his relationship with teammates. When a player starts to occupy more space off the field than on it, management takes notice. Even though Tucker has been exemplary for years, the current context changes how he's seen within the franchise. The NFL, as an institution, doesn't usually act hastily in these investigations. The processes are slow, confidential, and can sometimes take months before an official stance is taken. This puts the Ravens in a delicate position. Maintaining trust in someone who no longer delivers the same performance and could be suspended at any moment. For a franchise seeking consistency and predictability, This is a strategic risk that cannot be underestimated. In addition, there's the issue of institutional reputation. The Ravens are an organization that values image control and internal discipline. In the past, the team has been involved in off-field controversies with key athletes and paid a high price for it. Now, with Tucker's case, however mild it may seem, there is an institutional memory that such crises can turn into bigger storms. Inside the locker room, the impact is also real. Even though most players prefer not to comment openly, the buzz is there. It's natural for a situation to create an atmosphere of uncertainty among the players and coaches. When a player's focus starts to split between the field and legal or disciplinary issues, the group feels it. And when it comes to a name with Tucker's history and visibility, the noise only grows. For the fans, all of this is uncomfortable. Seeing an idol involved in something negative creates an emotional fracture. The trust that was built over more than a decade starts to weaken. And the Ravens fans, who always saw Tucker as a model of conduct and performance, now find themselves having to rethink that image. The discomfort doesn't just come from his mistakes on the field. It comes from the silence surrounding what's happening off it. With all these signs of instability, the franchise begins to consider a drastic change, and perhaps an unprecedented one in its history, selecting a kicker in the draft. And do you see how off-field situations can influence even the most established players on a team? Leave a comment if you think this kind of investigation should weigh in a decision to keep a player, or if you've seen other cases where off-field turbulence changed the course of an entire team. Let's discuss it in the comments. Since the Ravens were founded as a franchise in 1996, one thing has always stood out. The team has never used a draft pick to select a kicker. Not once. It's one of the most defining traditions of the team, and to some extent, a sign of how the club has always believed in alternative methods to find talent at the position. Matt Stover came with the team from the Cleveland days. Billy Cundiff was an emergency solution. And Justin Tucker? A gem found among the undrafted, who became a legend. But maybe this tradition is about to end. The current context is different. Tucker's performance has declined, uncertainties have increased, and the 2025 draft brings an interesting class of specialists. For the first time, the Ravens are showing signs that they're willing to break this unwritten rule. In a team where tradition is taken seriously, thinking about changing the standard shows just how delicate the situation with number 9 is. You don't break nearly 3 decades of history without a very strong reason. It's curious to observe how the Ravens have always managed without drafting a kicker. This highlights the franchise's competence in developing talent, but it can also lead to overconfidence. The current scenario requires a cold assessment. The past worked, but the present may not offer the same easy solutions. And when the stability of a key position starts to fail, trusting in chance is no longer viable. At this point, the draft ceases to be just an opportunity and becomes a strategic move. Baltimore has the space, the extra picks, and knows it can find the ideal replacement there. Even though the team hasn't admitted this publicly, the signals are in the air. The possibility is on the table. And breaking this historical pattern would be a direct response to the instability currently faced. What also weighs in this process is the symbolism. The Ravens are not known for making drastic changes. The club has a strong culture, with decisions based on patience and consistency. But every culture evolves, and selecting a kicker in the draft will be one of the most significant changes of this new phase. A step that, if taken, carries the weight of a new era beginning. For the fans, this idea might seem strange at first. After all, why change something that has worked for so long? But football is a game of adaptation. Ignoring the signs out of attachment to tradition can come at a high cost. What worked yesterday could be exactly what gets in the way tomorrow. The challenge for the Ravens now is to balance respect for the past with the courage to look ahead. And who's driving this transformation, even if cautiously with his words, is the man who runs the team behind the scenes, Eric DeCosta. When Eric DeCosta speaks, Ravens fans listen. And this week, he said something few expected. He openly considered the possibility of drafting a kicker. It seems simple, but coming from the general manager of a franchise that has never done this in nearly 30 years, it's a strong signal. DeCosta doesn't speak without reason when he puts a topic on the table. It's because the front office is already having serious discussions behind the scenes. And now, for the first time, the idea of finding a new number 9 through the draft no longer sounds absurd. DeCosta's statement was calculated, but direct. He mentioned that, yes, there are great kickers who have been drafted. He reminded that they selected punters in other years and made it clear, if the right name is available, anything can happen. He also praised special teams coach Randy Brown's work in talent evaluation. In other words, it's not a random decision. It's something already being built with technical analysis, planning, and a forward-looking vision. What stands out is the tone of the statement. DeCosta didn't mention Tucker. He didn't directly reference the crisis. But the subtext is clear. The position is no longer guaranteed. This, coming from a leader known for his diplomacy and control, is practically a veiled message to the veteran. The time for absolute stability has ended. The role that has been untouchable for so long is now under observation. For a GM like DeCosta, who has the mission of keeping the Ravens competitive year after year, this decision is strategic. He knows that modern football demands efficiency in all phases of the game, and special teams, although it gets less attention, can be the difference between a win and a playoff elimination. If the team feels it needs renewal there, he won't hesitate, even if that means letting go of an idol. DeCosta's speech also marks a transition in mindset within the franchise. Baltimore has always been known for its loyalty to veterans who delivered elite performance. But the message now is different. Merit must be maintained. It's not enough to have history. You have to deliver in the present. This is a message that resonates not only with Tucker, but with the entire locker room. No one is above the evolution of the team. It's important to remember that decisions like this don't happen overnight. The evaluation work begins long before the draft and involves dozens of names, videos, interviews, technical data, and in-person testing. If DeCosta has come out publicly to touch on this topic, it's because the franchise has already seen something worth considering. The name hasn't been decided yet, but the movement has already started. And if the scenario is favorable, the Ravens are ready to act. And one of the names that stands out most in this process, and that has already been face-to-face with the coaches, is Ryan Fitzgerald. Well, we're already heading into the fifth topic, but before we continue, I notice you haven't left a like on this video yet. This is very important for YouTube to continue promoting my content, and that way, I can keep bringing you the best content about the Baltimore Ravens. So go ahead and leave a like, it's free, okay? Continuing. Amid the uncertainty about Justin Tucker's future, one name is starting to gain momentum behind the scenes at the Ravens: Ryan Fitzgerald. The Florida State kicker has already been closely evaluated by the coaching staff in a private workout that didn't happen by chance. Baltimore doesn't waste time with athletes who aren't seriously on their radar. And Fitzgerald has something special. He comes off a perfect season, 13 out of 13 attempts, with 5 of those conversions being over 50 yards. The numbers speak for themselves, and the Ravens are listening. What stands out about Fitzgerald isn't just his composure on long kicks, but the mechanical consistency and technical maturity. During his college career, he made adjustments to his kicking style that increased his accuracy and reduced the margin for error. It's not common to see a kicker evolve this much in such a short time. This growth curve is exactly the kind of indicator that franchises look for when seeking a specialist who can develop quickly in the NFL. Another relevant point is Fitzgerald's emotional profile. Reports indicate that he is calm, focused, and resilient, 3 indispensable traits for the position. Being a kicker in the NFL isn't just about having a strong leg. It's about handling pressure, the silence before the kick, and the millimeters between glory and disaster. If the Ravens are considering breaking their tradition and using a pick on a kicker, it's because they saw in Fitzgerald something beyond statistics. They saw mentality. And it's worth noting, Fitzgerald is being ranked by analysts like Mel Kiper Jr. as one of the first kickers to be drafted. In other words, this is an obscure name, but a legitimate talent that other teams are also eyeing. This raises the urgency. If Baltimore really wants this player, they can't hesitate. They have to act. The private workout was just the first step. Now, the final decision depends on the draft board. This move shows how the Ravens are staying alert to the future. By bringing Fitzgerald in for evaluation, the franchise is sending a clear message. They're already exploring concrete alternatives. And this puts even more pressure on Justin Tucker. Knowing there's a possible replacement under consideration completely changes the trust dynamic within the team. One more mistake, one less detail, and the balance could tip. For the fans, seeing a new name being tested at kicker might seem strange. It's like imagining the Ravens without Ray Lewis in the past, or without Lamar today. But every era has its end, and as difficult as it is, the renewal cycle is inevitable in high-level sports. Fitzgerald, at this moment, represents more than just an alternative. He represents a possibility of a new chapter beginning at the most stable position in recent Ravens history. But if Baltimore really follows this path, they'll need to use one of their 11 draft picks, and each choice must make sense. The Ravens enter the 2025 draft with a rare advantage, 11 picks in hand. This arsenal gives a franchise the flexibility needed to make strategic moves without compromising other areas of the roster. And when thinking about such a specific position as kicker, it's exactly this kind of context that allows for a calculated gamble, especially in the later rounds, where the risk is lower and the return could be high. The mere presence of this many picks already creates an environment conducive to a natural, low-key transition of generations at the position. Spending a day 3 pick on a kicker might seem frivolous to those focusing on the more headline-grabbing names in the draft, but those who understand the inner workings of an elite team know that every detail counts. A missed kick can cost an entire season, and Baltimore, having been eliminated from the playoffs by minuscule details in the past, understands well the importance of not neglecting the special teams phase. Having a reliable kicker is just as crucial as having a dominant quarterback. This potential move in the draft doesn't necessarily mean Tucker will be cut immediately. The most likely scenario is that the Ravens will use the competition as a thermometer. A new name at training camp could serve to reignite the competitive fire in the veteran, or, if he continues to decline, clear the way for transition. It's a cold, calculated move that respects history without abandoning the need for evolution. Another important point. By using a late-round pick, the Ravens don't jeopardize investments in more high-turnover positions. The team can still pursue reinforcements for the offensive line, pass rush, or secondary in the early rounds, maintaining the idea that the project is balanced. Drafting a kicker in this context becomes a strategic bonus. It's a behind-the-scenes move that prepares the ground for larger changes, should they become inevitable. This approach also preserves the franchise's image with fans. It's not a public dismissal of Tucker, but quiet adjustment that offers options without drama. Loyalty remains a hallmark of the Ravens, but market intelligence requires that loyalty comes with a contingency plan. Baltimore is doing just that, protecting itself against the decline of a key piece. For the Ravens, the draft has become more than just a showcase of talent. It's a tool for legacy transition. When used well, it allows the franchise to navigate periods of change without breaking its identity. The choice of a kicker, no matter how small it may seem, carries this symbolism. It's the kind of move that says a lot about how the team sees its future without having to shout from the rooftops that the Tucker era is nearing its end. And if this transition happens, it will be a powerful symbolic break. Because Justin Tucker is not just a kicker. He's a living legend within Baltimore. And if you made it this far, drop Justin Tucker, Legend of the Ravens, in the comments, so I'll know that you also recognize the historical impact he's had on the franchise and on football. Continuing, Justin Tucker is undoubtedly one of the greatest legends in the recent history of the Baltimore Ravens. When he joined the team as an undrafted player, no one could have imagined he would become the most accurate kicker in NFL history. He brought not only skill but also stability and confidence, which were crucial in several game-winning moments over the years. His journey with the Ravens is marked by iconic moments, such as a famous 61-yard field goal against the Detroit Lions, and his consistency, which placed him among the league's greats. Tucker has always been more than a kicker. He became a symbol of the franchise, a pillar of excellence in a team full of stars. However, the reality of football is unforgiving, and even the greatest legends face the effects of time. The 2024 season was one of Tucker's most difficult years. With a field goal accuracy rate of 73.3%, he had the worst performance of his career so far. These numbers, combined with failures on 50-plus yard kicks and the off-field investigation that still hangs over his head, create an uncertain future. The kicker position, once seen as one of the greatest pillars of stability on a team, has now become an area of questioning in Baltimore. The trust that once existed in Tucker is gradually being replaced by the need for adaptation and renewal. Despite the decline in performance, Tucker remains an admired and respected figure. He carries an immense legacy of success and accomplishments, and his legacy is undeniable. However, football is a sport of constant change, and the Ravens know they need to be prepared for the future. If the franchise decide to move on and find a new kicker, it doesn't erase what Tucker has done for Baltimore. On the contrary, it would be an attempt to ensure that the team remains solid in all positions, including kicker, with the same level of competence they've always shown. However, nothing is guaranteed in sport, and the team seems to be preparing for a possible transition. The decision to draft a kicker, as we've seen before, would be a historic milestone for the Ravens. It would be an acknowledgement of the need for renewal and adaptation, without undermining Tucker's work. In the NFL, the future never waits, and Baltimore is attentive to signs that the franchise needs restructuring in some areas. As painful as it may be, the team knows they must look ahead. Tucker's cycle with the Ravens may be coming to an end, and the search for a new leader at kicker could be the necessary step to ensure continued excellence. This transition process, though delicate, is something many teams must go through, and the Ravens know this. The fans, though attached to Tucker, need to understand that the future demands difficult decisions. The era of Justin Tucker will undoubtedly be etched in the franchise's history, but like any sport legend, his time of dominance eventually ends. And the question now is how the Ravens will handle this period of change. One thing is certain. The franchise will continue its quest for stability and success, whether with Tucker or with a new name. The decision about Tucker's future won't be easy, and it will bring much reflection on what the team values and what it's willing to risk to ensure a more solid future. The idea of drafting a kicker is a change that respects the team's history, but at the same time seeks to secure a better future. Justin Tucker, the name everyone associates with precision and confidence, may now be challenged by a new generation of kickers competing for the same space he has dominated for so long. And although this transition may be painful for fans who grew up following his accomplishments, it's important to remember that changes are necessary for evolution. Justin Tucker's legacy will be eternal in Baltimore, but the future must be planned with courage and vision. The 2025 draft could mark the beginning of this new chapter, and the Ravens must be ready for what lies ahead. Now, more than ever, the future is at stake, and Baltimore is ready to move forward, whether with Tucker or with new promise. Now that you've seen everything that's at stake, the big question is, what will Justin Tucker's future be with the Ravens? Baltimore's decision to look at the draft and consider a new kicker shows that even the greatest legends can be challenged by time and the evolution of the team. Whether with Tucker or with a new name, the pressure for results has never been higher. And what does this mean for the future of the Ravens? One thing is certain. The franchise is ready to take the next steps, no matter what happens. What do you think about this change? Leave your opinion in the comments about the possible transition and whether you think Tucker still has room to shine or if it's time to turn the page. Let's discuss it together. And if you like this content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this. The future of the Ravens is just beginning.
And if you, just like me, are passionate about the world of football and want to learn more about the Ravens' legacy, don't leave this video without sharing it with that friend who is also a Baltimore Ravens fan and will love this content. See those video suggestions on your screen? The first one was handpicked just for you, and the other is a recommendation from YouTube itself. See you there, and until the next video, go Flock.